Well, I'll put down I shouldn't have done them there. Now I'm going to walk on them. I'm going to put them here. Palm leaves there. That looks good. So it's not supposed to be me this morning. It's supposed to be Darren Painter. And I'm supposed to be away, probably at the beach. But God had other plans, and that's all right. And I'm excited to be here. We're still going to have Prison Fellowship come. All that happened is Darren Painter did an amazing job in his role with them. He finished up. In the transition, when they're handing over schedules and what's coming up, they must have not mentioned Highfields Church of Christ, so we somehow went under the radar. But it's all right. I've talked to the guy who's taken up Darren's role, and he's going to come and join us later this year, which will be really good. But I want to start off this morning by asking a question. What do you remember about going to school at the age of 6? So you can think for a minute. Maybe it's some good memories. Maybe it's no memories because you did homeschooling. I don't know. I know for me, though, it was speech impediment. I didn't know this word at 6. I still struggle saying it now. But what I mean by this is I went to school at 6, and I started to notice that people talked different than me. I noticed that I would sit there with the teachers, and they would say how to say a sound, and it wouldn't sound like everyone else's. Run and one are two words that almost sound similar when I say it. I have to think really hard in my mind to make sure I don't mix them up. So I discovered I was a bit different. I discovered the words that came easy for my friends didn't come easy for me. I did the smart thing as a kid and made a joke of it because that's what you do. But this is when I discovered I had a speech impediment. This is when teachers would start pulling me aside and telling me where my tongue should be when I talk. I even had one lady who would make a paper airplane and poke the roof of my mouth of where my tongue would be. I don't know if that's probably allowed anymore, but it was in my time, so that's how she tried to help me. And I don't know what you remember about what you experienced when you went to school, but that's one thing I remember, and it's one thing that sticks out, just the fact that words were harder. I had to think a lot more than everyone else, and it just didn't seem fair. But I want to talk to you about school in Jesus' day. So boys started school at the age of 6 and were taught the Torah, having the whole book memorized by the age of 10. So just to give you an example of what we mean by the Torah, that's the 5 books of Moses. That's these books right here. So a 10-year-old would have this whole thing memorized in their head. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. I don't think I could do that. But they would have it all memorized. And then many at this time would go to school, go back home, learn the family trade. That was the schooling for boys. You went and learn the Torah till the age of 10, and then you go back home, or you start learning a trade. But the best of the best, the ones who really had it, at the age of 10, would begin learning at the Hebrew scriptures. And by the age of 15, they would have the whole thing memorized. So just to put that in some context for you, let me see. Yep, that's that one. They got that memorized. They'd have, what's that? Yeah, that one's memorized. Oh, the prophets, yeah, definitely. They'd have the prophets memorized. So there you go. Age of 15, kids would have all that memorized if they were still doing school. That's a lot. In their heads, they would just know it. Now, many of them, would get done with this and go and learn the family trade. They take what they learned, their relationship with God, and they would go learn whatever trade they're meant to learn. But the best of the best would approach a rabbi to ask to be his disciple. And then this rabbi would grill them. He would sit down and ask them all, tell me what you think about Torah. Tell me about this passage. What do you think about this? What do you think God's saying? And would just grill them again and again and again with questions. And many wouldn't make the cut. Many, the rabbi might say, look, you love God, that's without a doubt, but you need to go learn the family trade. You don't have what it takes. But if the rabbi thought, this kid can do what I do, they would say to them, follow me. So this 15-year-old kid would leave everything, leave his family, and follow this rabbi. And the reason for this grilling and the reason for this student leaving everything was discipleship had a deeper meaning in those days. It meant to learn how to do what the rabbi does. So each rabbi had a yoke, their understanding of Scripture. So you would do what the rabbi does. You would learn that rabbi's yoke. And you would be like that rabbi. So discipleship was way more than just going to school, sitting in a class, saying the right answers, being a good student. It was being like your rabbi. It was that rabbi saying, this 15-year-old kid's got it. He can do what I do. And then getting him to follow him. And all this information might seem a bit strange, but I think it helps stories pop out for us when we read the Bible, because we don't know some of this. So we read some stories, and we're kind of like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think when we know some of the context, some of the thing that goes on behind the scenes, it makes these stories pop out. And one story that pops out in particular to me is the story of Jesus calling Matthew. And this story, obviously, is found in the Gospel of Matthew. And it's after Jesus has healed lepers, a centurion servant. Peter's mother-in-law got healed as well. He turned Peter's home into an epic center for healing, just made it a big healing center for a couple days and then darted off somewhere else. He calmed a storm by speaking to it. He cast out demons, and he made a paralyzed man walk. So this is after Jesus has done all these things. So Jesus is a big deal and known as a miracle worker. This means Matthew would have known about this Jesus cat. It wouldn't have been some strange random coming up to him. He would have known. He would have known the stories I just shared. And probably more, because who knows? They say the Gospels can't feel everything Jesus did, so I'm sure he might have done some other pretty cool, amazing things that Matthew knew about. He knew about this amazing rabbi who was doing these amazing miracles. And then we read what happens. Shortly after Jesus makes a paralyzed man walk, we read of something that happens in the Gospel of Matthew when Matthew's called. And it's in Matthew 9, verse 9. That's all I want to share with you this morning. But this is what it says. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at a tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. Now, so many cool things about this one verse. The first is the Greek word here for rose is the root word for resurrection. So in Mark 9:32, we read of Jesus hinting about his resurrection. And this is the same kind of word that Jesus uses. And it's not a coincidence that it's the same word, because Matthew had Mark's gospel when writing his own. And he drew this connection on purpose. It's not a coincidence. We know historically Mark was written first. We know Matthew used that and some other stuff to write his own gospel. Kind of was like fine proofreading it. What did Mark miss out on? Oh, I like how Mark said that. I might steal that a little bit and add my flavor to it. So he put this word for a reason. And I think it's because it's like a resurrection moment for Matthew. Jesus is saying to Matthew, although others have said you aren't worthy, I believe you are the best of the best. You can do what I do. Now imagine that. I just told you, who knows how far Matthew went in this schooling. Let's say Matthew was one of the best and he got to the age of 15. That means he's got all this memorized. It means he would have approached a rabbi, sat with a rabbi, got grilled, and the rabbi said, you don't have what it takes. So obviously Matthew went a different path, took his skills elsewhere. Or let's say he stopped at the age of 10. He's got all of the Torah memorized. And he would have went to try to go to school again and learn a bit more, and they would have said, yeah, no, you don't have what it takes. Go learn the family trade. And then you have this rabbi who's healing people, making crippled people walk, and he stops and he says, follow me. That's a lot more than just one word. He's saying right then and there that I believe in you, Matthew. You are the best of the best. You can do what I do. And I think sometimes we miss that. We miss what this might have meant to someone like Matthew. I just talked about the culture that they would have had in the schooling, right? So it's a big deal there, but it's also a big deal because Matthew's a tax collector. He took other people's money for an oppressive empire and then took a little for himself so he could live nice. They were despised. They were spit at. They would have to have guards protect them when they went out because the Jews did not like them. They were like worse than the Romans, which sounds crazy, but that's what they were. He was scum to his people. His parents probably wouldn't even eat dinner with him, wouldn't spend time with him. And you have Jesus saying this. You have Jesus going, you are the best of the best and can do what I do. Follow me, Matthew. And I think that's why we see this similar word of resurrection used, because this is a resurrection moment for Matthew. This is Matthew hearing that Jesus believes in you. So of course, if you're Matthew, you would drop everything. You'd leave your tax booth and you'd race because you just had the best of the best rabbis around say, look, you can do what I do. I've healed people. I've made paralyzed people walk. I can take away leprosy. I can calm a storm by speaking, and you can do it too. I believe in you. I think sometimes we miss that in this story. We miss that Jesus believes in you. So I want to ask you, have you had this resurrection moment with Christ? Because I think one thing we struggle with, and I can put my hand up, I am not really confident in myself. Don't think the best of myself. I change clothes a lot. I get nervous doing stuff like this. Like I don't have a high expectation of myself. And we're always talking about self-belief, believing in yourself more. But if we ever sat back and realized that Jesus believes in us? And it's something that may happen repeatedly because life can be a struggle at times. And I think we all kind of know that. But Jesus did it all because he believes in you. He came and we heard about what he did on the cross. He hung on a cross because he believes in you. He hung on a cross because he believed in the people even scoffing him. And this is something we have to go back to because I don't think we do it enough. We talk about it when we first get saved and then we just keep going with our Christian life. But I think we need to sit back in this moment. Remember that Jesus believes in us, especially when life gets hard. So I already got a speech impediment, which is pretty fun. My wife can tell if I haven't had enough sleep because I talk a bit slower and I have to think a lot more and I'll mess up a word or two. So I'm telling you guys now my dirty secret so you can pick it up too. But add on to that, I don't remember how many years, but a few years ago now, I used to do mixed martial arts, professional fighting. It's so much fun. Oh, I love it. Lock me in a cage with someone else. Oh, glorious. I'm weird. But yeah, a lot of people would. But one of the sad moments is I had to stop fighting because I had brain damage. I had a doctor tell me I had minor brain damage. Did all the tests. There was no major bleeds, and he kind of sat there and he goes, "Look, you got minor brain damage because I was already having stuff that I shouldn't have developed till I was 50. I was having issues with word recall, so like sometimes I have a word here, but I can't get it out. That's a bit frustrating. Yeah, no, I wasn't supposed to have that at like 20. That's why he's like, it's not good. Forget things. Have headaches that come and go. I have all these things. And I know when that happened, and I thought, I was going to change the world with my fighting. I was going to somehow, I wasn't going to be a UFC star, but I wanted to, get big enough so then maybe I could coach people. I could help spread God's news, God's love through the sport that I love. And a lot of that kind of went away and got put on hold when all this happened, and I felt a bit worthless. Even felt worthless too, because what else did I do? I worked as a chappie at that time, and I worked part-time as a pastor in kids ministry, and I'm like, what good is a pastor if he's got brain damage? I mean, what if it gets worse? What if I forget more stuff? I mean, how can I talk in front of people and stuff if I can't even like get a word out or struggle with saying my words? And I went through a season of feeling really, really worthless. Feeling that I wasn't good enough. And I struggled to have any confidence in anything that I could do. But I had to go back to this, that Jesus believes in me. Remember that he did it all for me because he believes in me. He hung on a cross, got nailed to it because he believes. He believes we can do better. He believes that we are amazing, divine creations. And I think that's what we need sometimes when we can't have confidence in ourselves. We've got to remember that Jesus believes in us. Because life is too much sometimes. So in the moments, I don't know what it might be like for you, but in the moments, stuff just seems to get real heavy. Could be, work not working out. It could be home life not working the way it should. It could be kids not listening. Grandkids, I guess, because there's lots of oldies, so you got the grandkids problems, but I don't know how that would be an issue. I feel like if my grandkids don't listen, I'm going to just drop them back off to mom and dad and be like, see you later. Have fun. I did it with you. But maybe I'm not there yet, so who knows? There might be something different. But whatever it is, when life is too much, when we struggle to have confidence in ourselves, we have to remember that Jesus believes in you. And I think that's life-changing when we can grab hold of that. Because I think that can help us keep going forward. As me and my brother have a saying, we say chin down, head up. So in fighting, if your chin's up and someone hits you in the chin, you're going to get knocked out easier because that's what makes your brain, shake and hit your skull lining, which then makes you get unconscious, if you want to know the science behind it. So in boxing, you got to keep your chin down in fighting, but you got to keep your head up because I can't just look down, otherwise I'm going to get plastered anyways. So chin down, head up. And we still always say that to each other. And I think knowing this kind of thing, knowing that Jesus believes in you, can help you have the same mentality when life is throwing punches at you. When life isn't going the way that you want it to. You can keep your chin down and your head up because you know the God who created everything believes in you just the way you are. And I think that kind of love can disrupt things in our lives. It can change things in our life. And we see it again and again in the Gospels. And I think knowing what it really meant to Matthew, to Peter, to all the disciples who were called, they were all the not good enoughs. You know, who knows how much of this stuff they learned or memorized, but they were all told at some points, you're not good enough. You can't do what I do. Go learn the trade. But Jesus calls them and says, follow me. Says again and again, I believe in you. When Jesus was building his followers and getting his disciples, he didn't go to the schools and get the best students. He went and got the JV team, the people who weren't good enough, the people who didn't fit in, the people who were outcast and scum in the society. And he says, I believe in you. And I think that's something we got to remember. We can remember it when we're at our highest point and we're doing all the God stuff right. And maybe we're ticking all our God boxes. I don't know what your Christian boxes are, but we all kind of have them. You know, I'm ticking my boxes. I'm doing this. Good job on me. So when we're doing all the right things, we can still know that God believes in us. But in the times when we're getting it wrong and we're doing the wrong things or we mess up, God still believes in you. That doesn't change. And I think that can help us in life. And it's something that can help us right now in this season that we're all going through as a world when there's stuff happening that just doesn't make sense. When you turn on the news and you hear about more horror happening, like what if it's not Russia and Ukraine, it's climate change that apparently is really bad and we need to do something, but no one's listening. If it's not that, it's, you know, families struggling. It's another flood happening, destroying homes. So it can be hard. And I think one of the things that can help us keep going is knowing that Jesus believes in you. So I just wanted to really share that with you this morning. I'm just going to close in prayer, and then the worship team will come back up. God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you so much that you believe in us. That you came down to earth and you called the not good enoughs, the people who didn't make the cut. And you said to each one of them, I believe in you. You said to the outcasts that you believe in them. You said to the people who were doing it right that you believe in them. You called them to walk and live in your love. I pray that you help us do the same. I pray that in the times when we don't believe in ourselves, that we'll remember that you do. That we'll lean into that. That we'll stretch out to live a life like you've called us to. A life where love constantly disrupts our path. And I thank you so much for this amazing church community and for the privilege of gathering together and worshiping you this morning. In your amazing name, amen.